The Chernobyl disaster took place 35 years ago, but its consequences still force people to maintain the exclusion zone around the power plant. The secrets that this zone keeps still perplex people. What dangers are hiding in this area? And what local finds frightened even experienced scientists? This is Infinity, and in this episode I'll tell you about the strangest and scariest finds, facts, and mysteries of Chernobyl. Most animals that were close to the reactor at the time of the explosion died within hours. The forest near the number 4 reactor was also contaminated. Later it was given a special name. It became known as the Red Forest. This is because the trees, which received the greatest share of radioactive dust emissions during the reactor explosion, soon changed their leaves and needles from green to orange and brownish red. In the process of eliminating of the accident consequences, the Red Forest was cut down. However, rusty trees can still be found in Chernobyl. The radiation background around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is considered high to this day. However, scientists have noted that during 35 years of isolation, the area around the plant has turned into a kind of nature reserve, which is now home to many species of animals and birds, including the rarest ones. The mass media tries not to discuss the subject of mutations in the Chernobyl forests much, but there are still famous examples. For example, there are giant catfish living in cooling ponds near the plant. Years of quiet, well-fed life away from humans have allowed these fish to grow to unbelievable sizes. People who have been near the ponds have shared videos on the internet, which clearly show that some of the catfish have long exceeded 2 meters in length. However, rumor has it that there are larger individuals in the ponds around Chernobyl. The reports from researchers show that the bodies of fish have indeed accumulated a huge amount of radiation. But the rampant growth of the catfish has nothing to do with this. According to biologists, the several meters long catfish have become like these simply because nothing has threatened them. Losing all their natural enemies, the long-lived fish were growing because no one was bothering them. The supply of food from humans also played its role. Not many people passing near the ponds would refrain from throwing the giants a treat. The Exclusion Zone has become a nature reserve. Here you can find foxes, wolves, deer, and wild boars. Rare bird species, including owls and eagles, have settled comfortably in the swampy area. Is radiation really no longer affecting Pripyat's fauna? In 2014, scientists placed 24 motion-sensitive hidden cameras in different parts of the Exclusion Zone. All animal species caught in the frame were monitored for a long time. According to the report, no major abnormalities were detected. Overall, the picture looked almost perfect. However, what these scientists found in the Chernobyl forest amazed the whole world. But before that, I'd like to talk about the people who live in the Exclusion Zone. Yes, not only animals live in Chernobyl. Few people know that a few hundred people live here as well. Almost all of them are workers and scientists. Although self-settlers live nearby, these are people who refuse to leave their homes despite the danger. One of the last consensus of Chernobyl residents was conducted in 2017. At that time, 84 people were declared in the official statistics. Not surprisingly, most of them are elderly people living in small villages. There are hardly more than 10 people living in each of these villages. However, among these self-settlers, there are also people who live all alone. Single self-settlers brought scientists an unexpected surprise. More recently, researchers discovered a herd of cows in the Exclusion Zone. Apparently, the cows were left unattended when some of these self-settlers moved away or passed away. Surprisingly, the released cows quickly learned survival skills and learned to endure even the coldest winters. It seemed that even domestic animals live good without humans. By the way, the locals were not going to tell the scientists about the herd. It seems they wanted to keep the animals a secret. What other secrets could the self-settlers from the Exclusion Zone be hiding? Stay tuned to find out all the details. The root of the problem. On April 26, 1986, the destruction of the number 4 reactor triggered the largest release of radiation in history. It took 206 days to eliminate the consequences of the tragedy, and 90,000 people were mobilized to build the sarcophagus. The first volunteers to arrive on site became victims of severe radiation sickness. It was decided to replace them with robots, which constantly broke down and refused to function in the contamination zone. Then soldiers and other workers, later to be called liquidators, were deployed to the scene of the tragedy. They managed to erect a concrete sarcophagus over the reactor. A monumental structure was supposed to keep the radiation inside the power plant and also was supposed to keep everyone else away from it. However, the sarcophagus was conceived only as a temporary solution. Gradually, its walls were cracking, and already 10 years after the accident, the total area of these cracks were almost 1,000 square meters. In 2017, a second sarcophagus, this time a steel one, called the New Safe Confinement, began to be built over the first one. It was commissioned in 2019. It's been more than 30 years since the accident, and all this time the rains and winds continue to wash radiation out of the foundation of the old sarcophagus drop by drop. Where was this radiation going? How far did it spread? You will not find reports on this on official resources. Reaction acceleration. Even on the most modern nuclear power plants, the use of water is unavoidable. Here it performs three functions at once. It cools, evaporates, turning into steam and powering turbines, and slows down the movement of particles. However, in the same way, water not only slows down the movement of neutrons, but also accelerates fission. According to official data, the slow growth of radioactive fission reactions is the destroyed Chernobyl nuclear power plant reactor is possible for several reasons. But it's enough that the increase in the reaction rate has already been recognized by the scientific community. The intensity of fission reactions at neutrons depends on the presence of a decelerator. In this case, the decelerator is water, which can come with rain or soil streams. The water decelerates the neutrons, which contributes to the fission reaction rate in the fuel masses. Also, when exposed to ionizing radiation and when the fuel dries out, it changes its structure, which can also affect the intensity of nuclear fission in it. Is it too complicated? Unfortunately, it is. At the same time, scientists state that the role of water in fission acceleration has not yet been fully studied. It's worth noting that the New Safe Confinement, in which construction more than 2 billion euros were invested, indeed no longer allows rainwater to enter the reactor. As a result, the neutron flux has stabilized or even begun to decrease at most points of concealment. But what if enough rainwater has already entered the first sarcophagus? In recent years, particle activity has started to increase in some sub-reactor rooms. This can be seen, for example, inside the room codenamed 305/2. Is it too difficult to understand the scientific terms? Well, there are other indications of a powerful radiation source within the exclusion zone. The evidence may seem circumstantial to you, but it doesn't make it any less creepy. As soon as the authorities announced the relative stabilization of the situation in the exclusion zone, tourists streamed to Chernobyl. The pioneers, of course, risked their own health and even their lives. But over the years, radiation levels fell, and today it's even allowed to give official tours on the territory of Pripyat and Chernobyl. Not all daredevils agree to obediently follow a guide along the trodden routes. Many of those who dare to visit Chernobyl go on a hike alone. Such a decision was made by a British resident named Neil Ansell. He decided that it won't be interesting to explore the zone as part of a group. Ansell hired an individual guide and went to Pripyat. The British visited the amusement park, walked through abandoned administrative buildings, schools and hospitals, and then decided to check the town's radiation level. The measuring device reacted sluggishly to the surrounding area. The radiation level in the touristic area was relatively low. That all changed when Ansell found a bag full of items in the undergrowth at the edge of town. Swiping a measuring device over it, the man was astonished. The device registered radiation levels at 2.728 millisieverts, which is almost 200 times higher than a CAT scan. By comparison, a single exposure to a dose of 5,000 millisieverts can be fatal within 1 month. It's not known what allowed the hiker to refrain from such a rash act, whether it was experienced guide or a strong sense of self-preservation, but Ansell never opened the bag. Moreover, he preferred to get as far away as possible. The discovery stunned the world, and many internet users who read Ansel's story jokingly remarked that the hiker must have found the loot abandoned by some urban explorer. That's all, guys. What else do you think is happening in Chernobyl that we don't know about? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.